Hello and welcome back to another episode of Cyber Voices, the official podcast of the Australian Information Security Association, otherwise known as ASA. I'm your host, as always, David Willett, and it is my pleasure to have you with us as we explore the diverse voices of the Australian cyber industry. Welcome back to Cyber Voices, recorded live backstage at CyberCon Canberra 2025. I almost said CyberCon 2024 then, because I did a million of these at last year's CyberCon. I'm joined this morning by, actually just crossed over into afternoon, but I'm joined this afternoon by Alexander Duffy for Alex or Alexander.
Alex is fine.
Alex is fine from SA Power Networks.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you.
First time at CyberCon, or have you been?
No, I've been here before. I was here last year as well.
Okay,
but never gone to the Melbourne one, so
Okay,
we'll see what happens.
So what brings you to the Canberra one over Melbourne?
They accepted my talk.
That's a good start.
It's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And what's your role at SA Power now?
Yeah, so I'm the Cyber Risk and IoT Resilience Manager. So really focusing on all aspects of the cybersecurity risk, helping guide program strategy, architecture, all that kind of bits and pieces.
So you've just come off giving your talk, is that right?
Yeah. What is it now? Yeah, about an hour ago. Yeah.
How'd it go?
Yeah, great. So hit my 30-minute mark, which is always ideal, and 10 minutes of good questions. So smashed the 40 minutes. It was great.
Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so I spoke about our resilience exercises and our resilience program that we've really beefed up over the past year. So it was really focusing on two key exercises that we did. One with the Australian Energy Market Operator and one with our crisis management team. So it was really highlighting that one of our key outcomes, right, is that we identify that communication is one of the hardest pieces of an incident.
Yeah.
Because you're not just communicating in amongst your team, you're communicating with other teams, other elements within your business, other stakeholders within the incident from federal government, state government, etc. And the communication is burdensome.
Yeah.
It is a pain to carry on, and almost took up almost two people's full role during a 2-day incident just to get all the reporting done right. So it was really about our lessons learned and how we can communicate better within the IT teams, making sure people aren't doing redundant tasks and really just stepping up that communication level.
It seems like you've got a really strong program around incident preparedness, which is fantastic, because from my own personal experience, I'm a CISO in my day job, and making sure that the organization is ready to respond so that I can do my job effectively in the event of a crisis is so important. And to be honest, in my experience in both what you call a live fire incident response exercise in your blurb here and in real incidents I've been involved in, it's often the comms team that gets really kind of bogged down in what to do. In your exercises, what are you finding is the part that they're struggling with the most?
So it's not just the corporate comms team, it's also internal team communications.
Okay.
So one of the things that we found is that our supporting infrastructure teams that were off auditing some database for like 4 hours.
Yep.
Well, we had actually bypassed that piece of information within 30 minutes. So they were doing a redundant activity for almost 3.5 hours because there wasn't a flow of communication between the two groups.
Yep.
So it was really identifying that, hey, we need to communicate more with outside, and then we need to have channels of communication that we didn't have during that exercise, and what we can improve on in the future. And really the highlight of the conversation is that what you do in theory does not equal real life. So you might do tabletop exercises, but everyone's in a room. So you're talking to Bob over there and he's already in the room. But in a real life incident, trying to get a hold of Bob, he might be on a coffee break. You might not have the right channels to contact him.
Yeah.
You might need to reprioritize already priority work for the business. So how do you actually go get those resources?
Yeah.
So
might be off sick. Who knows?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Who's the next in line for communication? Yeah. So really practicing those lines of communication and doing it within your tabletop exercises. So yeah, tests and your walkthroughs become real life scenarios.
Yeah. And as you say, right, when you do a tabletop, you're generally following in an ideal circumstances kind of set of follow the bouncing ball activities, I guess. But in reality, it can become pretty crazy pretty fast. So what is the key thing that you're trying to get out of doing a tabletop or a live fire exercise? What is what are you hoping to ingrain in people with that practice?
Yeah, so it is that preparedness and creating muscle memory. So if you go through a practice enough times, you'll be able to do it in real life scenarios, but also testing our documented procedures. So the reason why I call it live fire exercise, we actually implanted technical artifacts for our SecOps team to hunt for with using our own tools, our own environment, rather than you capture the flag. We got someone else's system, someone else's team. And then part of that, we also went through to recovery. So we tested the technical recovery plans for those 4 systems going back 4 days. So the known clean state. So we actually went through and did a proper test. We tested our documentation, made sure it worked for us. And while it didn't get to a full continuity event, so a business continuity event with that being called, it was still a really good test of our recovery procedures. And then also working with the infrastructure teams, because infrastructure teams don't really understand the cybersecurity process. They're used to their incident response process, which is get a system back up as soon as possible. Whereas cybersecurity is contain it, wait on it, investigate it, forensically investigate it, get copies of it, all that kind of fun stuff. And then you can restore it back to a known clean state. It's not restored back to as soon as you can. So it's working with them and educating them on the proper process. So in the time of a real event, we won't have someone recovering a database early and leaving us open to the same vulnerability the threat actor already exploited.
Of course, yeah. And there's the muscle memory part, I think, is a really key takeaway there, right? Because I know when I've tried to put executives through the whole tabletop exercise before, it's really, for them, it's not a technical thing, but it's also helping them understand the decisions that they might be faced with as responsible executives. You mentioned as well that you run some of your exercises with externals, or you're with AMO, the energy market operator, right? What's the importance of getting them involved in?
So they actually got us involved.
Okay.
There was around 23 organizations involved in this exercise. And really it's because AMO now has a coordination and response with with incidents that can affect the energy supply or to have the potential to impact the energy supply. So they have a responsibility that they had never really tested before. So part of Exercise Trident was to test their response and their role within an incident and helping organizations understand what their responsibility is as well. So they set up like 3 or 4 chats with them to go talk through, get further information, get intelligence from them, stuff like that.
No, incredible. And how did you sort of find that experience? Because I guess why I asked is I've been involved in sort of like cross-sector exercises before, and you can find that sometimes different parts of the network or different organizations within the network can have a very different view on how different things should be approached. How did you find that experience?
Thankfully for us, it was just us and AMO. We didn't have to deal with the other energy organizations.
Of course.
So that helps.
That helps.
And then AMO just stuck to their role of a coordinator and understanding their responsibility within it.
Yeah. And that's interesting because that's sort of them sort of stepping up as a coordinator. Because does AMO are they a regulator? Like what role do they sort of play?
So they look at it also from a market point of view. So making sure that the energy market is flowing appropriately. So when we have the whole East Coast energy market for the, national energy market is flowing appropriately, states aren't overburdened, undertaxed, etc., and making sure that cost is appropriate.
What's sort of the future program for you look like? It sounds like you've been doing a lot of work lately. Because I find you can do one big exercise and everyone's like, oh, yeah, we've done it and we've written all the papers and the board have gone yes to all the actions and all that. How do you keep the momentum going?
Yeah, so AMO has also understood that there was such a good benefit to last year. They've expanded on it. So last year there was an assumption that the initial access and the exfiltration was out of scope. This year they're in scope. So they're expanding on the exercise, making it more complex. And they're also moving into a little bit of a cross-red team. So there's still technical artifacts, but they'll be doing more. We'll be implanting in maybe more sensitive segments of our network. So expanding the scope. And then not only are they expanding the scope of the exercise, we're going to expand internally. So whereas previously just security, bit of infrastructure, we're going to expand it to IT, senior levels, and hopefully get to a crisis level event as well. And really bring OT into the journey because it's about that critical segment is OT responsible. So they understand their risk framework and their risk matrix and say, okay, we've hit an intolerable level. We're going to have to do the disconnect.
And who designs and facilitates the simulations for you?
So it's AMO facilitated by Gauntlet.
Okay. Yeah.
Together they push out the simulations.
Because the question there was more sort of, do you see this should organizations be getting someone externally to come in and do this, or can you run them yourselves, or do you do a bit of a hybrid approach? What do you think is the best way?
Yeah, so you can do it yourself. It takes resourcing and it takes knowledge. So honestly, you're better off going to an external entity or paying for some sort of support program. So you can do it half internal, half external. When we did our crisis management exercise, we did that external through an external law firm. They came up with a scenario, they judged us, and they provide guidance at the end.
Yeah. You're marking your own homework a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You come up with your own findings and say, no, we're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the reaction to the talk like? What kind of questions did you get?
It was pretty good. Like some of the questions were, how did you get the buy-in from your executive team? Because honestly, people struggle with that. My answer to that was, thankfully, much to his detriment, our CEO previously went through a cyber crisis. So we have that support from him. So he doesn't want the same thing happening to our organization because they were out for a significant period of time.
Yep.
So how can we as an organization be better prepared and have that foreknowledge or the foresight that he has from his past experience? So we have that buy-in from the executive team to take up next steps. Then not only that, but with government legislation pushing through for like SOCI frameworks and stuff like that, it helps us get that buy-in from executive teams.
What I was interested in too, right? So when you do a tabletop, I've done some of them which have worked really well, and then I've had others which have been, you can get some resistance to what's happening. How do you have you experienced that, and how do you kind of manage that during a tabletop to make sure you get that proper buy-in, that everyone's really there and they don't just feel that they're there doing a fire drill?
Yeah. I think helping them understand the importance and also keeping the scenario engaging. We're kind of trying to switch up how we do a scenario. So we've done a little bit more of like a role-playing thing where people get to like read little cards and get more involved in the incident rather than just doing a verbal response.
Yeah.
So just trying to keep it engaging, but also helping them understand the importance and helping them get an outcome out of it, like testing their recovery processes, finding faults.
Yep.
So something we did last year was a technical recovery exercise on a tier 1 application. So we actually made it fail over. And during that failover, we found the technical recovery process was flawed. The database got corrupted and our priority system, which thankfully was in winter because it's a fire danger level, so it didn't have an impact, but really that would have been quite devastating in a fire event. So we've fixed that, and now we understand that the process was broken, we know how to fix it, and now we're not going to have that incident again. So they're getting these outcomes out of it, knowing that we're actually testing the procedures and so there's going to be results from it, not just a tick and flick exercise.
And there's always, I guess, opportunities to improve and do better. Like, what are some of the things that, in the future you think you might, you kind of touched on some of it there, but like some of the stuff that you might actually adapt and change to move ahead?
The two things that I really want to do is out of hours testing. So have the alert come through mid-morning, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Really?
Which is when it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be honest.
Because if you can't call someone, because I got Do Not Disturb on my phone. Everyone has Do Not Disturb on their phone because there's nothing better than night sleep, right? But how many people have their boss on it or the SecOps number? You don't have the people responsible for alerting and reporting. Like if my boss didn't have the SecOps line or the other managers.
You're talking about having it in their exception list.
Yeah, their exception list.
Yep,
so getting
which
that.
I've definitely got for my SOC on call. Yeah,
good plug for yourself.
Yeah.
Don't worry, bosses, I got this.
Yeah.
Because people don't. Like, I didn't. I completely missed that. It's just a simple oversight, right? And how are you going to make decisions if someone's uncontactable? So the CIO is no longer available. Who gets to make the decision about cutting the internet?
Yeah.
So it's about testing those procedures and making sure that we can respond to an incident outside of hours. And then the other one is 24-hour technical recovery. So scheduling teams. How do we go through the process? How do we have maintained building access? Is there little things and steps we can take to prove that we can be in the building for 24 hours and maintain that technical recovery, etc.?
Yeah. I really like the point of challenging people on, what will we do if it happens at 1:00 in the morning or on Christmas Day or New Year's Day or Easter, Good Friday or whatever it is, right? Because, experience has taught me that that's when you're probably most likely.
Yeah, it's always when you don't want it.
Yeah. And you can't blame people for putting these things on Do Not Disturb, by the way. This, I'm pointing at my phone, by the way, listeners, like it vibrates.
Oh, it's annoying.
Every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm very prone to muting group chats. It just goes off. It's so annoying. Yeah. So do not disturb, so important. But yes, if you're a leader within the business, you need to have some form of availability as well.
Of course. Yeah. And it's not to say that you can't go out and enjoy your weekend or...
still smash a few beers, right?
Have a few beers or go out for a glass of wine or whatever it might be. But...
Yeah, we'll say drink responsible.
Yeah, exactly. But, you do need to have those good plans in place.
Yeah.
If you've got people who are on call, make sure they're the right people and they know what to do and who to contact and who to escalate to. But
those redundant lines of authority as well. Yeah. Especially when you're doing things like disconnecting from the internet, which has a pretty significant impact on the total business, where normally a CIO would make the call. But if they're not available, you can't get in touch with anyone in the executive.
What if they're on holidays in Europe or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Who's their backup authority? They're lines that need to be tested.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that some of the good tabletops I've seen are usually where actually a delegate swaps in.
Yeah.
So we're
you're gone. You're gone.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's do this in a real world, where sure we've lined up calendars for this day of tabletop, but actually let's say the CFO or the person in charge of corporate comms is not around, right? Let's make sure the delegates are documented and bring a few of them in to see how they'd operate.
Yeah. We do the same thing for technical responding teams. Mm-hmm. So you take out the knowledge authority of a system and see if the responding group can still act. Yeah. Because there's always one beacon of knowledge in any group. Mm-hmm. And if they're not there, can you still function? Can you still follow your technical recovery process? Mm-hmm. They're meant to be written dumb, right? They're meant to be a simple process that anyone can follow within the team. Yeah. If it's only relies on one person's knowledge, then you've got a issue waiting.
How large an organization is SA Power Network?
1.7 million customers, over 900,000 homes and businesses.
that rambled off of the pamphlet of the lease.
And so what do we have? Almost 2,800 employees. Mm-hmm. And then, some of the other key stats is like we're one of the leaders in renewable energy generation. So we're kind of at the forefront of import, export of solar energy. So with that comes new challenges. So we're kind of leaders in security as well, because we help buy in and help work with the government on coming up with new processes and new document and policies. Yeah. So we're quite big and thankfully for us significant within the industry as well.
Yeah, and then you certainly have got a reputation and a positive one at that. But what I was what I was interested to know is that there are sometimes you have conversations with organizations like yourself who are large enough and have the ability to kind of run these simulations at scale.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have, or do you have an opinion on what smaller organizations who may be missing some of the, they may not have a big corporate comms team or whatever it may, how should they be approaching this?
Really start small.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a wonderfully humongous exercise, right? Mm-hmm. You can do small little scenarios, even if you got like an outsourced MSSP or something like that, run through their playbooks in response to your organization's events. Just little tests, little exercises of just little fractions. You don't need to run through a whole incident from where to go. You can just do a little bit of our system has ransomware. How do we respond? And then work with your senior leaders and take them through what you've learned, what you've done, build up that trust, and then run them through an exercise and see how they respond and then help them through the learnings.
I think that's really important. It doesn't have to be perfect.
No.
I think there is a tendency to aim for perfection. And
there's still no perfect. We do exercises and we still have lessons learned from every single one, right?
Yeah, and it's right. And it's actually, it's okay to go through it as a smaller organization or a larger organization and go, all right, we've got some big gaps here, but now we know.
It's okay to fail. In a test, it's okay to fail. In a real life scenario, you're bit up shit's creek.
Well, wouldn't you rather know in a scenario controlled situation that actually no one knows what decision we would make, or if we had to shut down a whole bunch of substations or whatever it might be, right? Yeah, exactly. Who's authorized to do that?
Yeah.
And forgive me if you mentioned this already. How high up the chain did the engagement and involvement in your simulations go?
So the Australian Energy Market Operator one, we did it up to our CIO and we provide reporting to our CEO as we normally would in an incident.
Yep.
But it's all exercise and no need for a response. so that's the extent that we did with that. But then we also did a crisis management team exercise, which involves our executive management team, legal representation, corporate comms, and we ran through another cybersecurity exercise in conjunction with an external law firm.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's good. It's glad to hear that. I think more and more people are leaning into that. Well, you kind of need to run a real sort of like top to bottom kind of situation, so that I've done them in the past. Where I'm like, all right, let's you get all the technical people together, and then whatever decisions they make flow on through to the CIO and their peers and so on and so forth. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing such an interesting topic to the conference. Any final kind of parting words that you'd like to have for our listeners on this topic?
No, just do it.
Just do it.
Go on Nike on it, right? Just do it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a challenge. You need to get a bit of buy-in, but you can start small and build up that trust, build up that knowledge, and expand out. It doesn't need to start big. You start big, you're likely to fail. So start small. And engage third parties if you need to. There's lots of good organizations out there that can help you and assist you in building up your resilience capabilities.
Excellent. Yeah. Lean into it with curiosity, it sounds like.
Yeah. That's much better than what I said. Lean into it with curiosity.
I'm a paraphraser. Yeah. It's just kind of my superpower. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us, pulling you off the conference floor.
No problem.
I'll let you get back to enjoy it, and thank you for lending your voice to us.
No, thank you. No, thank you. There's a comma there.
Cheers, mate. Cheers. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cyber Voices. Our music is by Sanar Garut. Our show artwork is by Studio Quarantine, and we record our show at This Is a Studio in Pran, Melbourne, part of Popplant Productions. Please make sure you follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. Also, please follow the association on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you want to add your voice to our ever-growing chorus of diverse cyber voices, have questions, feedback, or would like to be a sponsor, you can do so by emailing us at cybervoices@aisa.org.au. That's cybervoices@aisa.org.au. Are you an AISA member? If not, you should consider joining our network of over 12,000 members across Australia. An AISA membership can open doors, build professional networks, create lifetime friendships, and offer exclusive training, events, and other perks. Become a member today by heading to our website at aisa.org.au. That is all for today. I hope you will join us again next time on Cyber Voices.